Reginald Wayne Sharpe, Jr. Good afternoon. It is my highest delight to share this auspicious afternoon with you all. To President David Thomas, to Chairman Willie Woods, to the trustees, faculty, staff, administrators, alumni of Morehouse College, and most importantly, to the tenacious class of 2024. I think y'all can do better than that. Let's celebrate this class today. Let's celebrate this class with class. And after I heard the reading of the scripture from our class president, I now want to call him the Reverend Dr. Ethan Lewis. Y'all give it up for our class president. Thank you. We celebrate you. You know, there are no words for this kind of moment. As we were singing, "Great is thy faithfulness," and that line, "All that I have needed, thy hands have provided." I did not plan on crying today, but a tear jumped out of my eyes, because I remember just 11 years ago sitting where you're sitting, class of 2024, and I can truly say, down through the years, God has been faithful to me, and I know God will be faithful to you. I owe so much to Dean Lawrence Edward Carter, and I want us to pause just to celebrate one of the leaders among leaders, one of the kings among kings. Help me celebrate our inimitable dean of the chapel today. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I was minding my business one Market Friday, enjoying the fabulous fragrance across the fence over at a place called Spelman College. And I received a frantic phone call from Dean Carter, and it sounded something like this: "Reggie, I need you to get to my office immediately." There was an opportunity for me to publish one of my sermons I preached as a freshman, and because I was too lazy and missed the deadline, Dean wanted to call me to the office, set me down, closed his door, and said, "Hear me, you will not be just another handkerchief head preacher." And I want to thank you, Dean, for taking the ceiling off of my imagination. I am still doing my best not to be just another handkerchief head preacher. I still don't know what that means, but I'm working very hard not to become one. The Chapel Assistance Program helped me so much. We had seminary swings. We visited Harvard Divinity School and Yale Divinity School, Princeton, and we visited schools in Chicago. I would not be who I am today, pastoring in Chicago at the historic Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church founded by the late Reverend Clay Evans, if I did not have a foundation that was built right here in this chapel. And so I don't come empty-handed today. I cannot promise you this will be a good sermon, but I have brought a love gift. That's what we say in Baptist churches. I've brought a donation of $10,000 from Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church that I want to donate to the Chapel Assistance Program to help some student that may be in a tight spot. To the Chapel Assistance Program. When I was a student, it was a $10,000 scholarship that allowed me to stay in school. And I still don't know who gave it to me to this day. But God is just faithful like that. We honored my mother, my wife. We honored my wife, Lady Bree. But my mother is here. My mother and love are here. I just want you all to help me celebrate these black queens. Stand up, stand up. Come on. You got to appreciate mama. And as I look to my right, your left, I see some professors who I know are going to be listening intently to me today. Dr. Aaron Parker, Dr. Harold Bennett, and Professor Ilya Davis. No grading today. No grading today. No grading today. It doesn't, we'll talk afterwards. We'll talk afterwards. But I'm grateful. I want to jump into this. I see so many brothers and sisters, siblings. I thank God for each and every one of you. There is a word found in the book of Psalms. Psalms, the third Psalm. And I would like to read verses 1 through 3 because our class president read so eloquently from the King James Version. I want to just quote it from the King James Version as well. It reads like this, verses 1 through 3. Lord, how are they increased that trouble me? Many are they that rise up against me. Many there be which say of my soul, there's no help for him in God. Verse 3. But thou, O Lord, are a shield for me, my glory, and the lifter up of mine head. But thou, O Lord, are a shield for me, my glory, and the lifter up of my head. I would like to use a regionalism from the South. I would like to use a vernacular contraction familiar to the African American community as a title today. It's just one of them days. It's just one of them days. If I was in Chicago, I would say, look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, sometimes it's just one of them days. I know Dr. Allison Ligon is cringing in her seat. I know Reginald Sharpe did not come to Morehouse on the occasion of this baccalaureate celebration and use them instead of those of them. I said exactly what I meant, and I meant exactly what I said. Because sometimes you're just going to have some of them days. I know some of you only listen to Tamala Mann and you only listen to James Cleveland, but in 1995, Monica dropped a song called It's Just One of Them Days. It's just one of them days that a girl goes through when I'm angry inside and I don't want to take it out on you. It's just one of them days. If you keep on living before you exit this earthly sojourn, you will have one of them days. Matter of fact, this weekend feels like one of them days. You will have one of them days. And graduates, today, even though you sit here with mixed emotions, we sit here on this controversial weekend, these graduates' backs have lifted the weight of pandemic pressure. These men have wiped tears of hopelessness from their faces. Your presence is proof that the pandemonium of the pandemic was not enough to keep you from persevering in your purpose. Here you sit adorned in ebony robes as living proof that trouble don't last always. You've had some of them days. Some of you did not have a high school graduation because to be in the class of 2024, that means some of you commenced your journey in 2020 at the height, the peak of a global pandemic. Some of you all didn't have a high school graduation. Some of you had to learn how to take finals with COVID. Some of you, had to take classes at home looking like you were dressed up from the waist above, but you had pajamas and socks from the waist below, sitting on Zoom class after Zoom class after Zoom class. Some of you buried loved ones. We've watched George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and hundreds unalive because of militarized policing in this nation. You all have had some of them days when your financial aid needed first aid. And some of you all are like me. You had to see your way through some of your most difficult classes. It's so funny. I walked in behind a professor who seed me through. Dr. Melvin Foster. I don't want to call any names. You all have already had some of them days. And we have come over a way in which tears have been watered. And I've come to remind you that the spiritual, emotional, intellectual stamina to face them days ahead of you is already within you because you've survived so many of them days behind you. I told you just 11 years ago, I sat on the front row of this chapel on this weekend listening to some baccalaureate preacher, but I wish somebody had prepared me for some of them days. This is a leap year, and some of you, like me, had no idea why we have a leap year or why we add one day to the end of February. You were wondering, like I did at the beginning of this year, what is the purpose of a leap year and a leap day? Well, I'm glad that Google is a friend that sticketh closer than any brother. And Dr. Parker, I went to Google and I discovered that it was Pope Gregory the 13th, who was the leader of the Catholic Church. He discovered through some astronomers and scientists that if they did not add one day to the end of February that would occur every 4 years, that eventually in 700 years the calendar would be completely out of sync. So it takes one day every 4 years to make sure that the cyclical synchronicity of the calendar stays intact, so that Christmas won't be in July and so resurrection can remain in spring. It takes one day to keep the cyclical synchronicity of the calendar in sync, because one day every 4 years has the power to keep you in sync with the seasons. Come here, I'm trying to help you. Some of you gonna run from the dark days and the long days and the arduous days and the laborious days and the complex days and the exhausting days, but you've got to embrace all the days, because God may use your lowest day to keep your soul in sync with the season God has ordained for your life. And so I know you sit here today filled with felicity. You sit here today saturated with serendipitous splendor. You sit here today etched with ecstasy flowing through your eyesight. But I need to sober you up just a minute and remind you that on the other side of these doors, on the other side of whatever happens tomorrow at commencement, you're going to have some of them days. That's what Robert Browning Hamilton was trying to describe in his famous poem when he said, I walked a mile with pleasure and she chatted all the way, but I grew none the wiser with all she had to say. But I walked a mile with sorrow and never a word said she, but all the things I learned from her when sorrow walked with me. You're going to have some of them days. You're going to have some of those days like Zora Neale Hurston, who said, I've been to sorrow's kitchen and I've licked out all the pots. She was trying to tell us about them days. Every day you walk across this campus and you saw these words on the Frederick Douglass building that said, without struggle, there is no progress, because Frederick Douglass was trying to prepare you for those days. J. Cole put it like this. He said, there's beauty in the struggle and there's ugliness in some success. He's trying to prepare you for some of them days. India Irie put it like this. Back when I had a little, I thought that I needed a lot, but a little was a little too complicated and a lot was a little overrated. She was trying to prepare us for some of them days. Some of y'all don't know anything about J. Cole or India Irie, but maybe you heard about those popular poetic prophets from 1980, Frankie Beverly and Mays, who put it like this: is joy and pain, boo-boo, sunshine and rain, and then the end gets me over and over. You can be sure there will be sorrow, but you will endure. Where there's a flower, there's the sun and the rain. But it's wonderful. They're both one in the same. Isn't it amazing that the days that begin in gloom usually end in revelation? That's why Isaiah, that 8th century prophet, said it was in the year King Uzziah died that I also saw the Lord. I like that also, because God is the only one that'll straighten your vision through a vacancy. So don't be just grateful. Don't just be grateful for the good days. Be grateful for all the days. Without sad days, you wouldn't appreciate joy. Without cloudy days, you wouldn't appreciate rain or sun, rather. Without grieving days, you wouldn't appreciate the gift of life. The dean of preachers, the Reverend Gardner Calvin Taylor, once told this story of a young man who was hit with a hard season. And Reverend Taylor said, the young man said to someone, "I wish I had never been made." And the voice came back that said, "You're not yet made. You're being made." And it takes some sighing and crying and sorrowing and hurting and bruises and pain and anguish and anxieties and troubles and rain and winter and dark nights and high hills and lonely ways and stony roads and cloudy skies and steep mountains to balance our souls through the struggle. I'm so glad God will use anything to make you who God wants you to be. Because that's what's going on in our text today. King David is having one of them days. It's one of them days because the context of this content requires you to go back to 2 Samuel chapter 15 through chapters 19, because what's happening is David is king, but his trifling, duplicitous, pusillanimous son Absalom is trying to usurp the kingdom from his father. He's trying to become king out of sync. And you know what happens with life. It's not usually the people who are far away from you who can harm you the most. It's often the people that are closest to you. And class of 2024, all of your friends are not your friends. All of your brothers, all of your sisters are not your brothers and your sisters. And only life will reveal who's real, because the valley will always expose people's authenticity. You will discover some things in tough moments that you won't discover in high moments. And it's his own son trying to take the kingdom. And watch the strategy of the enemy. He doesn't just try to attack his father by himself. He, for 2 to 3 to 4 years, stands by the gates and he corrals all the people in the kingdom who also are displeased with King David's leadership. You know, it's just the way the enemy works. Most of your enemies or adversaries or antagonists are too cowardly to face you by themselves, but they have to gather other people who don't like you, so they come as a group and say, "We think," and it's really not "we think," it's what one person thought. And so he gets all of the kingdom to turn against King David. And it's under this kind of stress, Dr. Marva, it's under this kind of duress, it's under this kind of anxiety that David writes, "Lord, how are they increased that trouble me? Many are rising up against me. Many there be which say of my soul, there's no help for me in God." You're hearing me, but you're not hearing me. He has countless foes. He has contamination in his family. He has a conflict in his faith, because now people are saying, "We don't even believe God is going to protect you in this storm." Lord, how are they increased that trouble me? Lord, many are they that rise up against me. Many there be which say of my soul that there's no help for you in God. You would have made it easy through Morehouse if you just had 1 or 2 papers, but you had many papers. And you've had many obstacles. And we sit on the precipice of this afternoon about to face many challenges ahead through the rest of 2024. If it was just 1 or 2 things, we could take that. But what happens when it's too many to count? And my grandma would put it like this: if it ain't one thing, it's another. Lord, how are they increased? They trouble me. Lord, many there be which say of my soul, there's no help. But over in the corner, there's a little 5-letter word that says Selah. Now, most scholars say that it doesn't mean anything, but other scholars argue that it's a musical notation that means it's an interlude. You should stop, pause, breathe, think about it. I know you've been focusing on verse 1 and 2. Lord, how many are they increased? They trouble me. So many things are going on that have arrested my mind, but just have a Selah moment every now and then. Stop, pause, and think about it, because if you pause long enough, you stop looking out there and you start looking up there, because he shifts and he says, Lord, they say you're not going to help me, but you, oh Lord, are a shield for me, my glory, and the lifter of my head. I know why you're looking at me like that, because you must not know the Lord that I know. He said, but you, oh Lord, are a shield for me. You're my glory and the lifter of my head. I know you don't know the Lord I know, because I just gave you a reason to shout at Morehouse Baccalaureate. The Lord who reached back in the archives of eternity and grabbed the blueprints of the universe and somehow out of nothing created everything. The Lord who put blue in sky, green in grass, yellow in sun, gray in cement, wet in water. The Lord that gave the hyena his laugh, the lion is roar, the dog is bark, the cat is meow, the roach is run, and the leopard is spots. I'm talking about the Lord. The Lord who set the seasons on sacred synchronicity, so winter never comes before fall, fall never comes before summer, summer never comes before spring. I'm talking about the Lord. Y'all still not feeling me? The Lord. Adam's redeemer, Noah's ark, Gideon's fleece, David's shepherd, Solomon's wisdom, Esther's help. I'm talking about the Lord. Some of y'all still not with me. The Lord that brought you to graduation weekend. The Lord who woke you up this morning. The Lord who started you on your way. The Lord who let an auntie cash app you on your brokest day. Anybody know the Lord? You're here right now because the Lord is a keeper. The Lord is a way maker. He said, thou, O Lord, are my glory, my shield, and you're the lifter of my head. Y'all be seated a minute. You're making me nervous. Because when you face them days, you better remember who the Lord is. He'll lift your head. Can we just back into the verse? Can we just back into it? I don't want to drive. I want to reverse into the verse. Go to the end. It says, the lifter up of mine head, which literally means God will alter our focus. 2 Samuel 15:30, David is walking up the mountain with the cloak over his head because he's so stressed. He's so sad. He's so depressed that his head is bowed and his spirit is low. But somewhere between 2 Samuel 15:30 and Psalm 3:3, God became the lifter. And you do know, before we rejoice over the fact that God will lift our heads, can we acknowledge the fact that there are some real realities that cause us to drop our heads? When we see a 23-year-old black U.S. airman gunned down by police in his own home, it'll make you drop your head. When we see millions of dollars invested in building Cop City here in Atlanta while displacing black families to build a mock city for police training, it can make you hold your head down. When Donald Trump can possibly become president again with 4 federal indictments, 88 federal charges against him, he's been in court more than he's campaigned, it can make you hold your head down. And I know some of y'all don't agree like me. It's all right when you preach your sermon, preach it the way you want to preach it. But today I'm going to preach mine the way God told me to preach it. Yeah. When the United States continues to send billions of dollars to fund weapons to Israel, it'll make you hold your head down. When almost 35,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza, while 1,200 people have been killed in Israel, it'll make you hold your head down. When institutions who taught us to be socially conscious turn and ask for us to become conveniently silent, it'll make you hold your head down. When just this past week, a fourth grader dies by suicide because of bullying, revealing our nation is in the midst of a mental health crisis. And prayers and church alone will not heal every mental illness. We need Christ and a couch, theology and therapy, meditation and medication. It'll make you hold your head down. When we see peaceful protesters attacked and carried away like animals, all while some others with the complexion for the protection are taken by Burger King after murdering 9 people in Bible study in Charleston, South Carolina, it'll make you hold your head down. On the 70th anniversary of Brown versus Board of Education this weekend, schools in black and brown communities received $23 billion less than schools in white neighborhoods. It'll make you hold your head down. When you can ban books about black history in Florida but can't ban assault rifles in Tennessee to protect our children while they're in school, it'll make you hold your head down. And if all of that in the world isn't enough, just trying to wake up black, breathing while black, driving while black, dreaming while black. The daily stress of life. I'm almost done. I know y'all ready to go eat. I almost didn't feel like coming today. I didn't feel like coming, if I be honest. December 4th, my father passed. And last month around this time, I was cleaning out some of his personal belongings, and I found 11 years later his proud to be a Morehouse dad pen. My grandmother passed, and Dean Carter told me when I was a student, Reggie, I believe that if you were holding a revival in hell, your family would call and say, what time are the buses coming? My family was that kind of family, and to come back home to Atlanta, I'm born in Decatur where it's Greater Lithonia where they own you. So I'm home, and it doesn't feel like home. It makes you hold your head down. But somewhere between the hotel and walking in this chapel, God said, so I will lift up mine eyes. Where my church folk? I will lift up mine eyes beyond the hills. Where does my help come from? My help doesn't come from the president. My help doesn't come from Congress or the legislators. My help doesn't come from Morehouse, but all of my help. Tell your neighbor, lift up your head, O ye gates, be ye lifted up, ye everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. Y'all making me feel like Sunday on a Saturday. Who is this King of glory? The Lord, strong and mighty. God will alter your focus because he'll lift your head. But God just won't alter your focus. God will anchor your feet. Because if you reverse a little bit more, it says you're my glory. And about 6 years ago, Dean Carter, you know, young preachers think we have it right sometimes. And I preached that meant God is my honor, God is my reputation, and God is not going to allow anybody to dishonor me. How untrue was that? No, that word glory in Hebrew means kavod. Let the chapel say kavod. That word in Hebrew, kavod, literally means the weight of God. It literally means God's glory is like gravity. And what allows you not to float away with all you have going on in your life is that God is a glory that is like gravity that will ground you in seasons sent to shake you. Oh, that's some good stuff right there. Because how do you think you made it through history with Dr. Hamilton, or English with Dr. Norman, or philosophy with Professor Ilya Davis, or political science with Dr. Matthew Platt, or chemistry with Dr. Haynes? It's because God grounded you. And there's some mamas in the room. You didn't know how you were going to get your boy through school. And every semester, God just grounded you, anchored you. Can I be real black? Made a way out of no way. Yeah, he did. So let me help you understand what I'm trying to show you. A few months ago, I tried to hang my winter coat up in my closet at church. It was time to preach. I was running late. I tried to put this heavy winter Chicago coat, if you know, you know, in my pastoral study closet, and that one extra weight knocked the whole rack and rod down. Now it's time to go preach, and I have robes and shirts and my wife's shoes and dresses, and everything is everywhere. And I called one of the maintenance men in. I said, Brother Cam, can you please help me restore this, put it back up? I don't know what I'm doing, and I can't do it, and I need to focus on my sermon. He said, Pastor, I got you, but can I look in and just assess something real quick? He quickly leaned into the closet and said, Pastor, whoever installed these installed them wrong from the beginning, because there are no anchors in the wall. I said, and what is that? He said, you never install something meant to hold weight without putting anchors in the wall first, and then you put the screw inside the anchor, because the anchor's gonna grip the wall and help you manage the weight of whatever you got to carry. Y'all so sleep. God is your glory. God is your anchor, and the reason you have not completely collapsed is because he anchored you through the seasons that were sent to hurt you. Can you give him any kind of glory for his glory that kept you grounded? My soul has been anchored in the Lord. Brothers, I don't know what's next for you, but I do know he's going to keep you anchored. I do know that when the unknown shows up, God is going to keep you anchored. But that's not it, because God doesn't just alter your focus. God will anchor your feet. Can I give you one more? God will assist you through the fight. Because if you back up one more second, it says, God is my shield. God doesn't just give you a shield. God is the shield. And that word in Hebrew does not mean that it's just a shield that's unidirectional. This is the first shield that covers your front, your back, your sides, your heads, your feet, all at the same time. When God says, I'm your shield, it means you are completely and comprehensively covered for whatever you have to face next. That's a good place to give God praise. You are completely, comprehensively covered for whatever you've got to face next. You are completely, comprehensively covered for whatever you got to face next. Dr. Ann Watts, that may be why the old preacher used to say, no weapon formed against us shall be able to prosper. I remember I had a phone years ago, and it should have been shattered and ruined, but I put it in an outer box. And I remember I dropped it one day so hard from a high altitude, and I just knew that the phone was cracked. Well, the phone was still intact because there was a case around the phone that held it in place. I'm here to tell you, wherever you go next, class of 2024, God is the case around your life, And even if you die, you still don't die because your body leaves. Your spirit is going to live on forever. That's how covered you are. You got to face them days, so get ready. I remember when I was in high school, one of my counselors told me that you're a big fish in a little pond here at MLK High School over in Lithonia, DeKalb County. She said, you're a big fish in a little pond, but when you get over to Morehouse, and she probably didn't put the R in it, she probably said Morehouse. When you get over there to Morehouse, you are going to be a little fish in a big pond. And I cannot tell you how much that impacted me. I walked in here with an imposter syndrome. I walked in here with insecurities. I laughed with Dr. Melvin Foster. It's funny now. It wasn't funny my first semester because my grades looked like a staircase. I had an A, B, C, and an F. It's good to see you, Dr. Foster. As you can tell, I'm still healing. But by God's grace, scholarships appeared out of nowhere. My mother and my father lost their jobs while I was here. And by God's grace, I made it in 4 years. I know we have some exceptional students who made it in 5 or 6. Hey, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And I made it through. Went on to Yale. Stayed 1 semester, transferred over to Vanderbilt, finished my first master's, went on to Candler School of Theology, finished my second master's, came back here, became an adjunct professor for 1 semester in the religion department, and now here I'm preaching at the Baccalaureate for the class of 2024 as the youngest preacher to ever do it. I wish I could find that counselor. And I would tell her, I don't know if I'm a big fish or a little fish, but I know I've been swimming. So I came to tell this class, keep on swimming, keep on praying, keep on learning, keep on dreaming, keep on growing, keep on graduating, keep on protesting, keep on evolving, keep on discovering, because I've seen the lightning flashing. And I've heard the thunder roll, and I've felt sin's breakers dashing, trying to conquer my soul. But then I heard the voice of Jesus telling me to still fight on. He promised. I said he promised. I said he promised. Balcony, y'all awake? I said he promised. He promised never to leave me, never to leave me alone. And when you get through them days, you're going to say at least 3 things. Are you ready? Number 1, you're going to say, I've had some good days, and I've had some bad days, and I've had some weary days, and I've had some hills to climb. But when I look around and think things over, my good days outweigh my bad days, so I won't complain. There's a second thing you're going to say. You ready? If it had not been for the Lord on my side, where would I be? But there's a third thing you're going to say when you make it through them days. This is what it sounds like. On my mama, on my hood, I look fly, I look good, touch my swag, wish you could. I look fly, and I still look good.
I don't know what inspired me, but I've been sitting up here trying to figure out what a handkerchief head preacher is. Well, I can guarantee you, you did not hear one today.